All right, so I covered a story about a surprising one. It was a South Carolina representative, a black representative, who's actually a fiscal conservative. She's a blue dog Democrat, which basically blue dog Democrats are just conservative Democrats. And she actually switched her support from Joe Biden to Bernie Sanders. Her name is Dolly Myers. She appeared on CNN here to explain why she did it. I want you guys to check it out, and then we're going to come back and talk about this.
Having me.
So explain, why are you switching your support?
Well, first of all, let me just say that any one of the Democratic candidates now running would be a vast improvement over what we have in the White House. So, that having been said, I switched my support because looking at the ground game in South Carolina and the way that candidates were moving to inspire voters to get out to the polls with the messages that they were espousing after winning, I just decided that for the constituents that I represent, the 35,000 people in Richland County who elected me to office, that the better choice was Bernie Sanders. His programs are more prescriptive for their needs. The plan for rural health care, the plan for broadband access, those things matter to what I like to call little America, and those are the people I represent.
So Senator, Bernie Sanders lost South Carolina to Hillary Clinton, by 47 points in 2016. Why do you think this time is different? What puts him in a better position to be more appealing to South Carolinians?
Well, I think anytime you run a campaign, you learn from that campaign. I think the Sanders campaign has learned a lot from its historic run in 2016. There are 1,700 Sanders volunteers on the ground in South Carolina, knocking doors and getting out to talk to people and to explain what the Bernie Sanders campaign is called, why Medicare for y'all, as he's called it, matters to everyone in South Carolina. And I think that he's making an effort. Elections in South Carolina are won by hand-to-hand combat. Every knock on the door matters. And I think the Sanders campaign is putting in the work and knocking on enough doors to make a difference this time.
So there's a new Quinnipiac poll which finds that Sanders is third when it comes to black voters nationally at just 19%. Do you see an opening for him in South Carolina where, the black electorate is very powerful and sizable, and, it's important to appeal to that state if you're a candidate?
So I'm glad you asked that question. I am an atypical, according to the media, Sanders voter. So I am an African-American woman who is pro-life. I am fiscally conservative, and I identify definitely as a Democrat. So to the extent that the media narrative is that Sanders only appeals to very left-wing members of the Democratic Party, I would suggest that perhaps that narrative is shifting when the more people learn about the programs and the prescriptives for big, bold plans, the more attractive the plans are to people just like me. I do not identify as a socialist or whatever it is that folks want to label the Sanders campaign folks. I am not paid to work for the Sanders campaign. I chose to advocate for Bernie Sanders given the programs that he's espousing and what I know the needs are on the ground in South Carolina for the people I represent. So yes, I do think there's an opening here for Sanders or for any candidate who's willing to work hard and put forward programs that make meaningful changes in the lives of everyday people, and I think his programs will.
Now, I really like there that she basically says that, I'm a fiscal conservative and I support Bernie Sanders. I see his work on the ground, which, of course, Bernie's ground game is massive. But it is true that, his programs are fiscally conservative in terms of Medicare for All, saving the country money, of course. And so a lot of these programs pay for themselves, or they end up net saving us money. There was just a report from Yale Medicine where a PhD of epidemiology posted a study showing that Medicare for All would save us $400+ billion, as well as 68,000 lives. So that is definitely an interesting thing. The biggest thing I want to look at here, actually, though, is more of CNN's propaganda, all right? So they put up this poll, this new Quinnipiac poll, where Bernie is in third place with African American voters. All right, so I was curious. I was like, I've been seeing some pretty good numbers for Bernie Sanders when it comes to African American voters. I wonder why they decided to put the poll where he's third. And so this was recorded on the 16th of February, right? And so the new, quote, new Quinnipiac poll that they're talking about here is a Quinnipiac poll with Bernie up 8. As you can see here, this Quinnipiac poll, all right? And this Quinnipiac poll was 2-5 through 2-9. That's February 5th through February 9th, okay? And there are a lot of newer polls that have been posted. And so you can see this was posted on the February 10th is when it was dropped. The poll was conducted between the 5th and the 9th. But as you can see here, there's a lot of newer polls, like the YouGov poll, the Monmouth poll. And so I went over here to the YouGov poll, and because I was very curious here. And if you see, Bernie Sanders is actually second in this poll with African American voters. You know, the first choice, he's at 19, Bloomberg's at 17. So it's very interesting. They didn't use this one. And then the Morning Consult poll has Bernie in second with 27% of the African American vote. This is the Morning Consult poll. And these are all newer than Quinnipiac. That Quinnipiac poll is actually kind of old now. And so, you know, it's very curious to me that they would use those when there are newer polls showing that he's doing better than, you know, the one that they showed. So again, just a lot of CNN propaganda going on where they're trying to paint Bernie Sanders badly. But the story is very interesting of this, you know, representative in South Carolina who endorsed Bernie over Biden. And it is very cool.